This is a podcast.
And that was the intro. If you were expecting something more, then this is not the place for you to be. And you should probably fuck off now, respectfully. Now, I speak a lot about personal responsibility, taking accountability for your life, taking accountability for your situation, taking accountability for why it is that you are where you are or why you're not where you want to be. Whatever the case may be, the core of my philosophy can be boiled down to everything is your fault. And for the most part, people agree with me. But where I get the most pushback, where people seem to have a blind spot or want to make an exception, is when it comes to childhood things, when it comes to the upbringing of things. They believe that because something happened to you in your childhood, it means that you are now a certain way, or that certain behaviors are the result of actions that took place in your childhood, or events rather that took place in your childhood. And that in order to change these things, you need to first understand these things. And I aggressively disagree with that as a concept. You can deep dive through your childhood all that you like. You can explore your backstory and unfurl your upbringing, hoping to find some sort of secret reason for why it is that you are you, for why it is that you do what you do, why you think what you think, and why you believe what you believe. And people want to go to therapy and explore all of these things and unpack all of these things, but stop one step short of the answer. Because the true answer, the only answer, is that you have chosen to be those things. You are you because that's who you've chosen to be. You act the way that you act because that's the way you've chosen to conduct yourself. Yes, you may have experienced certain things. Yes, you may have been told certain things. Yes, you may even have been taught certain things. But how you chose to respond to that is on you. There is no series of words that you could be told that obligate you to conduct yourself a certain way or to follow them. There is no experience that you can go through that obligates you to react to it a certain way. People experience all kinds of different things and have all kinds of different outcomes from them. And the only difference there is their choice. Some people grow up poor and then decide that they are going to be very frugal and very careful with money. Some people grow up poor, get some money, and then blow it all. And they say it's because they didn't know how to handle it. But both people grew up the same way, were shown the same things, but responded differently. And the only difference is their perception of it and what it is that they chose to do with it. Circumstances do not obligate you to be a certain way. If you were modeled poor relationships growing up, maybe your parents didn't get along, maybe they were divorced, maybe they argued all the time, maybe your father was unfaithful to your mother or vice versa, whatever the case may be. And now you model those same tendencies and traits in your own relationships. It's not because that happened that you do that. It's not because you saw that you are now obligated to conduct yourself a certain way. It's because that's how you've chosen to respond to those things. That's how you've chosen to internalize what it is that you saw, because you absolutely had the option to do something completely different. Many people do. And I get a lot of pushback on this as well. But if something is not blanketly true, it is not a fact. You can dispute that however it is that you like. I don't give a fuck. I'm not here to argue. I can't hear you any goddamn way. But you chose to do the things that you chose to do. You chose to respond to the experiences the way that you chose to respond to them. Anything else is just your assignment of blame. However that may sound, it does not change the fact that it is indeed a fact. However, even if we were to put that part of my personal philosophy aside and say that a certain event in your childhood caused you to do a certain thing, let's say that because your father was an alcoholic, you were now destined to become one. You were now fated to become one. But you have not yet attached that significance, and you don't know that you drank too much because of your father and how you perceived it and internalized it, whatever. It makes absolutely zero difference. If you drink too much, the solution to that is to no longer drink, period. How you came to drink too much means absolutely nothing, whether it's because that was behavior modeled to you by your father, whether it's because you were kidnapped by aliens and they forced you to become an alcoholic. It does not change the solution. A lot of people have poor relationships, as people like to say, with food. And if when you were a child, maybe your mother withheld certain things from you, whether they be sweet or savory or salty shit, junk food, whatever the case may be, and she made snide comments to you about your weight and how it is that you should look. So she didn't let you eat certain things because she didn't want you to become a fat person. So you grow up and now that you're on your own, decide to make up for that by eating a bunch of food. Your relationship with food is not a result of what it is that you were shown with food. That's how you chose to respond to that. And if you don't know, if you forgot about all of those experiences, as people like to say, they pack them away or whatever, and you need to unfurl them before you can understand them, that is absolutely not true, because the cause of it does not change the solution to it. If it is because of your mother, that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't change the fact that you need to eat less food. It's not like if you discover a backstory that's exceptionally tragic, the way to change things or the way to make the change or solve the problem that you have changes. The solution is the same. And deep down, if people are honest, they know what the solution to their problems is. They just want to find a way around it because they're looking for a cheat code. And that's where all of this stuff comes from, trying to get to an understanding, like you're going to unlock some sort of secret thing in what you've experienced. But it doesn't change it. It never will, because it can't. Most things have a very direct solution, and however you got there does not change it. If you can go to the gym every single day, work out properly, and eat properly with absolutely zero understanding of biomechanics or why your program is set up the way it is, or how calories work or how macronutrient distribution works. But as long as you have a solid program, you will get the results that you're after, because you don't need to understand how something works or how something came to be in order to get the desired results from it. It is a nonsense concept that it is necessary. Do some people prefer that? Maybe, but I would also propose that they just want to go about finding it because they think they're going to find a solution that's different than the one that there is. A lot of people's problem is you have no self-control, and that's why you're unable to stop doing these things and or do the things that you need to do. And how you came to lack this self-control and or think about this lack of self-control is of absolutely no relevance to what it is that you need to do. There is no easier way because you understand what it is. There is no different solution because you understand how you came about the problem. Ultimately, it is procrastination. And I would argue that understanding where these things come from only makes the solution of it harder, because you've taken such a simple thing, i.e. you need to eat less food, and made it into a whole entire tragic backstory where now you have to heal these wounds that were created by your discovery and labeling of them, of your mother treating you a certain way and never feeling like you were good enough and feeling like you were deprived. And it's just now a whole other set of problems that you need to solve, where it could have just been something as simple as exercising self-control. Will it be hard in the beginning? Yes, but it's not going to be any easier because you understand where it is that it's coming from. It's not going to be any easier because you understand the so-called cause of these things. So your creation of this tragic backstory just gives you an excuse to continue doing it, because it's very easy to say, well, of course I drink. Look at the way that I grew up. It's very easy to say, well, of course I have no self-confidence. Look at what I was told as a child, as opposed to you just don't have self-confidence because you've never given yourself any reason to be confident in yourself. You're now lacking self-confidence in the story you tell yourself because of the tragedy that is now behind you, and you just keep reliving that. So that becomes your fallback and your excuse to not change the things that you need to do, because it gives you a reason for falling short of what it is that you are trying to do. It gives you an out, so to speak. And most people, under the guise of compassion, enable people with these things and say, oh yeah, it's very understandable. Of course you're acting this way. Look at your childhood. Look at how you grew up. Look at who your parents were. But at the end of the day, functionally, none of those things are of any relevance, because you are free to be a entirely different person. People do it all of the time. So the idea that you have to understand these things in order to change them is nonsense. As long as you understand the behavior, as long as you understand what it is that you are doing, that's the problem, then you have the power to change it. If you understand that you are quick to anger with people, then you can work on developing more restraint. How you came to be quick to anger does not matter. It does not change the solution. And it's not like how you came to anger excuses you for being angry. It's not like because you have what people call financial traumas that you're now free from bills or your other obligations. You still have to do the same things that you need to do, and the way to do them remains the same. I personally used to find this, what I'm doing now, what I do all the time on social media, talking to people in public, putting myself out there, putting my thoughts out there, putting my opinions out there, to be a very weird and uncomfortable thing. That used to be like a semi-fear, for lack of a better word, for me. I was not comfortable doing it. I did not want to do it. I was worried about people telling me that I was sounding stupid or saying stupid shit, or I had no business talking or sharing my thoughts or whatever the fucking case may be. Do I know why I thought those things? I have absolutely no idea. Am I suggesting that they didn't maybe stem from something? No, I'm not. All I'm saying is I don't know what the fuck it is that they stemmed from because I've never given it any thought. And the solution to it wouldn't have changed. The solution was to put myself out there and get more comfortable doing that. And I did that without knowing why I wasn't doing it to begin with. And I would again argue that if I had spent the time trying to figure out exactly what event caused me to decide to react to it the way that I did, it would have made that much harder for me, because now every time I'm doing this, every time I'm sitting here talking, every time I'm recording something, I'm thinking about, well, what about this time when this happened? I don't want to experience that again. And I now have attached some sort of significance to something that is functionally of absolutely no significance. So that would have only made this harder for me to be able to do as opposed to easier. But because I just came into it looking at it as I want to do this, and in order to do this, I need to get used to putting myself out there like this, I was able to freely do it. And it worked out perfectly fucking fine. And I still have no idea why I used to feel the way that I do, or the way that I did about it. And I absolutely don't need to. I also used to be very lazy as a child. I work out every single day now. Why was I lazy as a child? I don't know. Did some event cause me to be lazy? I have no idea. Did I get some sort of positive reinforcement or feeling or whatever the case may be from not doing anything, from just sitting around and not participating in activities? No idea. Did I maybe participate in some activities and it didn't go well, and rather than participating further and being embarrassed by my lack of competence in the activity, opt to just do nothing and get used to it? Maybe. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, I decided one day that I wanted to be in shape, and in order to do that, I needed to go to the gym. As I started going to the gym, I became less lazy. I don't know how I became lazy to begin with. I used to smoke. I was never an alcoholic per se, but however, if you look up the definition of alcoholic, it is turning to alcohol to make yourself feel better and or solve problems. And every single time I had an issue with something, or I was feeling bad about something, my thought was, let's drink. That's the only times I really drank is when I wanted to feel better about something, because I wanted to numb that. Did that stem from an experience that I had? Did that stem from something that I thought? I have absolutely no fucking idea. But I didn't need to have an idea. I just stopped fucking drinking, because it is that simple. People like to tell you that it's not. People like to say that you're simplifying shit or minimizing things, and that's not the case, because most things are very simple. A lot of solutions to things are very binary. It's A or B, and people like to infuse a bunch of gray into the middle of it in order to complicate it and give themselves a way out. And the more opportunities for excuses that you have, the more that you're going to take them. So it's best to just stick to what is truly factual. At least that is what it is that's worked for me. And I know that people take what I'm saying as saying that the opposite thing doesn't work. That's not what I'm saying at all. If going to therapy and digging through your childhood is your jam, then by all means, go fucking do that and sit on a couch and talk to somebody about what happened when you were 6 and try and figure out the meaning of that and figure out why your sadness now is somehow correlated to your 6th birthday when you didn't get the fucking Hot Wheels set that you wanted. If that makes you happy, do it. If you find that useful, go ahead and fucking do it. I am personally not somebody who has found that useful, and I have spoken to other people as well who don't find that to be a useful thing. But the popular narrative is, this is the way to go about doing these things, and no one hears anything differently. So I'm only saying these things to say none of that is factually true. None of that is factually necessary. You don't need to do that in order to change something. You don't need to understand a thing to do something different. You don't need to understand why you are where you are, or who you are, to become somebody different. All you have to do is take the necessary steps to become somebody different. If you have a character trait about yourself that you don't like, it doesn't matter where it fucking came from. You can just change it, as long as you know what it is that you want to be like and the steps to get to that. And the steps to get to that is not understanding how you came to be at the place that you are. If you're in California and you want to get to New York, you take the route from California to New York. It doesn't matter how you got to fucking California. And you can spend all the time that you want to digging through your mind, trying to figure it out and recalling experiences and talking to people and whatever and figure out exactly how you get to California. That's fine. It doesn't change the fucking route to New York. It doesn't change the means of transportation. You are free to go from point A to point B as long as you know that you are at point A. It doesn't matter how you got to point A. And furthermore, I know people like to quote their science and their studies and all of that fucking shit, but none of those things are factually true. You have people who saw their parents drink too much, and that is therefore the reason that they drink too much. And you have people who saw their parents drink too much, and that is the reason that they don't drink at all. So none of these are direct causes to things. They're just correlated at best, but the understanding of it is not at all necessary. Some people like to go through and unpack that, and some people just stop doing the things. You don't have to overcomplicate things. At the end of the day, it is absolutely an overcomplication, and you can do with that whatever it is that you want, but there's nothing that you need to heal to move forward. And functionally, all of the things that you consider to be traumas are only traumas because that's what you've labeled them. There are people who experience much worse things than you and think absolutely nothing of it. I've heard stories of people who talk about how they are traumatized from hearing gunshots near their house. I know people who have been walking around with bullets in them for years who don't think anything of it. I've personally been shot at and give not a fuck. So something happening is not guarantee of trauma. Your perspective on it is what causes you to be traumatized. Your perspective on something is what causes you to be traumatized, not the event, not the experience. You can go through something and brush it off, but trying to go back and dig through things could also cause you to wind up labeling things that were nothing to begin with as something terrible. Like, you forgot about it, and that's perfectly fine. And just because it's not in the forefront of your mind, it doesn't mean that it's repressed because it's harming you. It could just be you forgot about it because you actually don't give a fuck about it. So you're just digging up unnecessary memories to assign unnecessary meanings to things, and all that is doing is overcomplicating things. And I will also propose that a large part that goes into people considering something to be trauma is them believing things should have turned out differently than they did. You believe that you should have had a better childhood than you did. You believe you should have had a better school experience than you did. You believe that you should have had better relationships that you've had, or better experiences with people than you've had. And because you believe that these things should have gone differently, you believe they should have gone better. And because they didn't go the way that you expected, you have decided that they have gone bad. Because they weren't to the benefit that you directly wanted, you've decided that they were of detriment to you. But that is not a factual thing. That is a result of your perception of the circumstances. And at any point in time, you are free to change your results. You are free to change your perception of the circumstances. You are not obligated to look at certain things a certain way. I know people like to say, well, this is blanketly sad, this is blanketly bad, this is tragic, this is whatever the fucking case may be. But all that is perception. You could assign whatever value to whatever event you have that you like. And the irony of all of that is, even people's so-called healing work ultimately amounts to them just labeling what they've been through different, to them taking a different perspective on the memories that they've had. So you can skip all the way ahead of that and going through all of this shit and unpacking it and figuring out what it means to you and how you felt when it happens and how it makes you feel thinking about it, and just fucking think about it differently now. Or you cannot think about it at all. You are absolutely free to do that. The idea that you are not, or that you are beholden to respond to a certain thing a certain way, is absolutely false and is absolutely nonsensical, and is people putting their preferred method of dealing with something, on you. And your method does not need to be their method. Just because that's what most people do, just because that's what most people think, just because people have surveyed a bunch of people and they came to a certain conclusion, it does not make it a factually accurate thing. You can assign whatever values you want to whatever it is that has happened in your life. There are people who have experienced all kinds of terrible, sad shit, and they are thankful for it because it made them who they are today. There are people who have experienced the same exact terrible, sad shit, and they have used that as an excuse to not move forward and to be forever stuck in the past. At the end of the day, the past has only the power that you've given it, and you can take that power back at any given fucking moment in time. Your present is only dictated by your past if you allow it to be. You can completely forget about everything that's happened before you and are free to move forward as whoever it is that you want to be, if you choose to do so. But it is all on you. Your past will only hold you back if you refuse to let it go. But at any point in time, you are free to let it be. And this is not to take away from anybody's experiences. If you had something difficult happen to you, that's fine. And it's all subjective anyway. I'm not here to tell you what is difficult. I am only here to say that If it is not for you, if you do not believe that you need to go do all of this, or don't want to do it, don't see the appeal of it, don't see the benefit of it, or even have tried it and it doesn't work out for you, then know that you can do things differently. And just the most popular thing is not the thing for every fucking body. So yours experiences are yours to define as you see fit. And if you are still stuck living something that has already happened and that is preventing you from making the most of your present, regardless of how you feel about needing to explore the past, if you are stuck there, it is all fucking on you, respectfully.